Here I am back at the hosted zones, and you can see there's the hosted zone I just created in PowerShell. Let's go ahead and click on the domain name here. And there are our two resource records. Now the first thing I'm going to do is create another resource record pointing to the web1-east instance. We're going to use this to verify that domain name resolution works correctly after we update the name servers. Now I'm going to click on Create Record Set up at the top. Under Name, I'm going to put web1-east. The record type is going to be A, which is an IPv4 address, and the value is going to be the public IP of web1-east. And there we go. This is going to create an A record for web1-east.benpiper.host with the value of that instance's public IP address. Notice that I've left the defaults on the rest of the options here because I'm just creating a standard simple resource record, just like you do with any other DNS service. There's nothing special or unusual going on behind the scenes here. This is just a plain old resource record. Now, let's go ahead and create this. And now let's jump back to the command line. Now the command I'm going to issue here is nslookup web1-east.benpiper.host, and the name server I'm going to query is going to be the first name server in the delegation set list, which, as you remember, is the primary name server for the zone. We have that stored in the first NS variable. And not surprisingly, that resolves to the correct IP address. Now, by the way, if you don't specify a record type, nslookup will default to the A record type. Now, let me ask you a question. If I open up my web browser right now and browse to web1-east.benpiper.host, will it work? Well, think about what has to happen. My machine has to resolve that domain name to an IP address. How does it do that? It does it by querying the DNS server or servers that it has configured. Well, what are those? Well, let's just enter nslookup. Now, the name server I have configured on my machine here is 192.168.88.55. This is the local DNS server on my network. For a home user, this is generally going to be either their internet router or a DNS server provided by the user's internet service provider. In an organizational environment, this is usually going to be a Windows domain controller or just a Linux DNS server. The point is that this is not a Route 53 name server. Now, if I type web1-east.benpiper.host, it tries to resolve an A record for that address, but it can't. It fails and says non-existent domain. But where exactly is this error coming from? Well, let's find out. Let's try to check the SOA record. We'll do set type equals SOA, and I'll type benpiper.host. Now, this is interesting. It says the primary name server is dns1.registrar-servers.com. This is the DNS server that belongs to the registrar I use to register the domain name. This server has no record for the domain name web1-east.benpiper.host. That's why it gave that non-existent domain error. Now, as far as this name server is concerned, that domain name does not exist. It does, however, exist in the zone hosted on Route 53. So what I need to do then is go to the registrar and tell them that I want to update the name servers to point to the Route 53 name servers in the delegation set we created earlier. Speaking of which, what are those name servers again? Well, let's drop back to PowerShell. I'll type exit here, and let's scroll down to line 31. And we'll go ahead and run this to view those name servers again. There we go. Now, I need to tell the registrar that I want to use these name servers for the domain benpiper.host. To do this, I'm going to log into the management portal for the registrar that I used to register the domain name. If you're following along and have an already registered domain name that you want to use, you should log into your registrar's management portal now. Now, here I am at the domain name management page for my domain name benpiper.host. Again, this is not Route 53. This is Namecheap, which is a third-party registrar I used to register the domain name. Now, if you're following along, locate the option to change the name servers for the domain. That's going to be down here. If I scroll down, there's name servers right there. Now, I'm going to click the drop down here where it says Namecheap Basic DNS. And specifically, the option you're looking for will let you specify your own name servers. Nothing here explicitly says anything about custom name servers, but I do have an option for custom DNS, so I'll click that, and it gives me fields to enter my custom name servers. In these fields, I'm going to enter the 4 name servers from the Route 53 delegation set. We'll start with the primary one, which is that NS-806. We'll move on to the next one in the set, and then I'm going to click Add Name Server so that I can add the other 2. Add name server again, and I'm sure you figured out that I'm simply copying and pasting these. All right, once I have all those in, I'm going to click the check mark here to save. And it says DNS server update may take up to 48 hours to take effect. Now, by the way, if your registrar does not allow you to add all 4 name servers, you can add just the first 2 and you will be fine. DNS requires a minimum of 2 name servers, and anything beyond that is just for redundancy. The next question that might be on your mind now is, how long do I have to wait before I can actually start using Route 53? That is, how long will it take for the rest of the internet to realize that those Route 53 name servers are now the authoritative name servers for the domain? Well, that is what we're going to cover next.